Okay, here we are, 6.1, solve one-step linear inequalities. Here's the first problem that 2.5 is less than x. So they just want you to, in this case, draw this inequality on the number line. So let's just draw a number line, a straight line, as straight as I could do it. I put on here 2.5. It's obviously between 3 and 2. And then I have to ask myself, which way does the arrow go? Which way does the shading on this go, and how does it work? First thing you need to notice is that this inequality is not greater than or equal to, it's just greater than x, or is greater than. So I'm going to put a round circle around here, not filling the hole, indicating that it doesn't include 2.5. The next thing I do is I could either rewrite this inequality by writing it this way. I could rewrite as x is greater than 2.5. Or the other way I do it is I just read it, in order to avoid any confusion, from the x. I read the sentence as if I'm reading things backwards or whatever direction it's going from the x, where x is greater than 2.5. Well, if x is greater than 2.5, I know that 3 is greater than 2.5, so I just do a squiggly line this way. X is greater than 2.5, and all the numbers be above or greater than 2.5 are x. Okay? The next question here on this number line is negative 10 is less than or equal to x. Well, first thing first, I got to get x by itself. And the question is, how do I get a negative away from this x? And we know that there's really an imaginary, and I'm going to put it in green here, a negative 1 here. And the way I get rid of this negative 1 is I divide by a negative 1. And when I do to one side, I also have to do to the other side. The difficulty here is you need to remember the one rule that says that if I divide or multiply across this, magic line here, I have to change the direction. Oops, I should change my lettering here. I need to change the direction of my inequality. So in this case, because I divided by a negative 1, I have to change the direction of my inequality to the other direction. So a negative 1 divided by a negative 1, they cancel out, which gives me x now is the direction of the inequality has been changed. And a negative 10 divided by a negative 1 gives me a 10. Now, I'm probably going to have to graph this line, and that's okay. I could read it x. Remember, I started reading by x, and so I'm going to read it like this. I'm going to read it x is less than, because there's a little mouth toward it, or equal to, because it's underlined, or equal to 10. And so let me draw that out over here, where I have my 10 here in my number line. And if x is less than or equal to 10, I'm going to make a solid dot on there and go less than 10. I know that that's in the left-hand direction, goes to the negative direction, is negative 10. And that is that problem, the solution to that problem. Okay, slightly more difficult problem, and then I have two things on one side of a main inequality that are somehow either loosely or tightly connected to my x. In this case, the 5 plus 3x is less than or greater than 3. Let's move my 5 to the other side because I want to isolate my variable x in this case. And so the way I do that is the only legally to move that 5 over there is I minus 5 on this side, or subtract 5 from this side, subtract 5 from that side. That gives me 0. It gives me 3x is less than or equal to 2, a negative 2 in this case. So now I need to isolate my variable, my x again, my variable x, and the only way I could remove this 3 from this x is by dividing it by a 3. I divided by a 3. Now x, because 3 divided by 3 gives me 1x. X is still less than or equal to a negative 2/3. Now, wanting to graph that line, that number line, I have my number line right here. I know this is 0. Here is, oops, I should move that 0 over to the other side. So here's a number line, I'll plot it out. I know that 2/3 is a little, not quite -1, but not closer to 0. I'm going to say it's right over here is what that is. It's greater than or equal to, so I'm going to make a solid dot there. And I'm going to make it go toward, because x is less than a -2/3, I'm going to have to go this direction, in the less than direction, or in the negative direction. And finally, I think one of the harder problems in the unit, because it combines all the things we learned in the previous 3 problems. We need to isolate the variable n in this case, and it's a negative n over 5 plus, minus 2 is greater than 3. Let's get the 5 to the other side by adding 5 to the side plus 5 to this side. That gives me a negative n. Let's call it an n instead of an h. Over 5 is greater than 8. And how do I remove this 5 from this side? I'm going to do a little tricky thing. I'm going to move this negative down to the bottom here and make this a -5. I'm going to scribble that out. And the reason I do that is because that way I could just move the negative and the 5 all at one time, because negative 5n, negative n over 5, and an n over a -5 are the same thing. Okay? Let me get that out of the way so we can keep on working on our problem. Okay, so I'm now going to multiply this side by a -5, that -5 there. And when I do to one side, I do to the other side, -5. The -5 cancels out, leaving me the n by itself. I multiplied by a negative number, which means I need to change the direction of my inequality. And now I multiply 8 times a -5, which gives me a -40. Graph the number line. We got 10, 20, 30, 40. I do an open circle because it's not included 40. N is less than, and these should all be, oops, I should have done it the other direction.